What's poppin'? Welcome to a web-exclusive version of Real Ones. I am Logan Murdoch. That is Howard Beck. We are here to tell you if your favorite playoff team is real or fake. Let's talk about the New Orleans Pelicans, whose biggest moment this season was the in-season tournament where Zion Williamson came in chronically out of shape. If anyone was there, they know what I'm talking about. And since then, they have gone on a run. There are reports out there that Zion has shedded almost 30 pounds. He's looking great. He's looking spry, ready for his first postseason appearance. Howard, how important is this postseason for Zion's reputation league-wide?
Huge. You can't overstate it. It's huge. This is his fifth season. It's kind of hard to believe. 5 years, and this will be his first postseason. And granted, a lot of stuff happened in there, injuries and COVID and bubbles and all this stuff. But like the playoffs in the NBA are what make legacies. We don't care about what you did in the regular season. Ultimately, we don't care about how many points you scored, how many rebounds you got, how many phenomenal dunks you had. If you don't win in the postseason at some level, you fall in the category of also rans and you know, kind of like not like second tier stars. Basically, it's like, yeah, you were fun, you entertained us, we liked watching you, but you didn't matter ultimately. And so, you know, look, Zion's still only 23 years old and has a lot of NBA, I think, ahead of him. And if he can stay on track and in shape and staying healthy go hand in hand for him, he will have plenty of opportunities to make that legacy. But this is his first opportunity to do it. And so, yes, first impressions are important. They're right there in like the middle of the West pack. And, you know, hey, get that first playoff series win if you can do that. Even if you lose in the second round to the Nuggets or the Thunder or whoever it may be, you make that first impression. Now we're going to take you seriously. We're going to look at you through a different prism.
When I see Zion Williamson and at this stage of his career going into his first postseason, I think about all of the greats' first postseason, and it was a conversation that we've had on Real Ones with Raja where I'm curious to see I was always curious to see whenever he got into the postseason, because every star's first postseason, they just get their ass kicked, right? Where they have to, that's when you figure out your game. And I thought that Zion was always at a disadvantage because as he is trying to figure out the NBA life and figure out his place in the NBA, Luka was getting great playoff experience, right? You know, a lot SGA was coming onto his heels. There were a lot of players that were coming onto his heels. How important is it for Zion to get a fast track? He is 23, but he is 5 years in the league, and he is a guy that, quite frankly, the Pelicans are counting on to get them titles. So how does he fast track his development during this postseason and beyond when he is at a disadvantage behind Luka's and these other players and has another generation on his heels just like that?
Yeah. I mean, listen, this is also where we should just note real quick, we don't know as we record this what Brandon Ingram's status is going to be for the postseason. So he's out at the moment that we're recording this. And the Pelicans' fate, and therefore Zion's fate, depends at least a little bit on whether Brandon Ingram is healthy and back to 100% and able to do all the things he does, because you need a 1-2 punch in this league. And as much as there is a burden on Zion as a former number one overall pick, as one of those franchise savior types, playoff success is about the totality of your talent and depth. So we will probably put too much on Zion, no matter what happens here, because he's got that stature. But yeah, you're right. I mean, in this era of stars, you know, like his generation, the guys he's competing against, for stature, for legacy, all that. It is the Lukas and the Trays and John Morant, who of course was taken right behind Zion. You want to make that impression early. You kind of want to start building that resume, but also it's just a matter of just getting playoff experience. Like legacy is something you can start talking about years down the road. For Zion, it's just more about like establish that you're an elite postseason performer, and whatever happens in this postseason, just kind of get a feel for what that is. Because, there are many more years to come here with a Pelicans roster that is built to endure. Like, this is a good, mostly very young group that we should see together for a long time.
And a very deep group too, right? And I think Brandon Ingram is the face of their depth in that way, right? Where you saw them even 2 years ago go toe to toe with the top seeded Phoenix Suns, right, and take them to 6 games without Zion Williamson in the lineup. And the conventional wisdom among New Orleans and their front office was just wait till we get Zion into the fold. You got you think we're good now? Wait till we get that guy. And he's battled injuries since then. But if this all goes right, and by right, I mean a good showing in the first round, right? Or maybe they win a series where they're not supposed to win, and they get into the second round. Could this be the start of something? There's been a lot of stops and starts with this iteration of the roster and the organization, but could this be a start of something really good for them in a reign in the Western Conference for years to come?
No, it absolutely should be. I mean, look, let's just hit the basics real quick here. This is a team that was flirting with or pretty close to being top 10 offensive and defensive efficiency all season. So they're already there in that top-ish tier. You have 2 absolutely legit stars in Zion and Ingram. You just got to keep them healthy. You've got Herb Jones, who's one of the most versatile and elite defenders in the NBA and on a really good contract. You've got a great supporting cast with Trey Murphy, Valanciunas, Jose Alvarado. And their only rotation guys who are over 30, and they're in their early 30s, are CJ McCollum, Larry Nance Jr., and Jonas Valanciunas. So this is a group that, based on age alone, should have a really long runway. Based on finances, they're going to have some financial pressures, which, that's what happens. If you're good enough, if you've got enough talent, eventually you have to start making some tough decisions because of the NBA's structure, luxury taxes, and all that. But yeah, I think this is the start of something, Logan. And if they fall short in this postseason, whatever that may mean to them right now, they do have options. They've got a lot of tradable pieces. They've still got some draft assets left over from the Anthony Davis deal with the Lakers years ago. They've got some optionality. And so, this is absolutely the start of something, I think.
Now, that leads into my next question, which is how deep of a playoff run will justify keeping this core? CJ McCollum has 2 years left on his contract. Ingram has 1 year left following this season. There gets to a point that we see in the NBA, especially when you're in the 4th and 5th seed in your respective conference, where you hit a ceiling and it's either we stick with this group and see it through or we trade to get better. Where are the Pelicans in that argument if this isn't as impressive of a playoff run as we'd hope to see as a front office? I'm speaking for the Pelicans in this case.
I had a conversation with someone recently who knows this team really well, just asking about, what the concerns might be for them. Like, where's their Achilles heel, or what are they still missing? And the response was, and this was not a knock on CJ McCollum, but it was kind of the idea that maybe they need more of a conventional point guard, right? You've got these 2 elite offensive talents in Zion and Brandon Ingram, and CJ McCollum is kind of that hybrid guard, always has been, and really good at it. But he's part scorer, part playmaker, but he's going to look to shoot quite a bit himself. I'm not saying they need to move off of CJ, but you do have 3 guys. This is where the finances come in. 3 guys who are making $30 million plus per year for the next few years in McCollum, Zion, and Ingram. It's hard to sustain that. The young guys are all going to need to get paid eventually too. And so I do wonder, whether
it's also hard to justify that when you're a 5th or 4th seed every year in and year out, paying 3 guys that much money.
But Logan, if we look at this as year 1 in some ways, where they've just broken through, you might give yourself a little more leeway, right? Like, if the taxes aren't suffocating yet, you might say, listen, even a first round out, this was the first year we had full health. This is the first year that Zion even made the playoffs. Maybe we give ourselves a little bit of room to let this group keep evolving. But I tend to think it's probably the other way, though, right? If you lose in the first round, or even if it's a second round out, you're probably still looking at, what are our options for reformatting here? And listen, it was only last summer that almost everything seemed to be on the table. We heard Zion Williamson trade rumors. We heard some Brandon Ingram trade speculation. Like, there's going to be talk about CJ McCollum and his long-term fit. I do think those questions are hanging over them kind of regardless of how this postseason goes.
All right, Howard. It's time for it's time for the segment that brought us here. Are the Pelicans real or are they fake?
This may surprise you. I say real. I think they're real. I surprised him so much that he nearly fell off the camera entirely. That was like epic level of recoiling there. Listen, they're real because if I'm going to say like what qualifies you as a real contender is, do you have elite talent? Check. Do you have, more than one star? Again, if Ingram is healthy, check. Do you have depth? Phenomenal depth. Do you have great defense? Yeah, they do. And they've got a lot of versatility within that lineup. So yeah, they're unproven. I get that. They are suspect based on their track record to date. I get that. But the basic outline in terms of what their talent and versatility suggests, I say they're real.
I'm calling them fake. And it's not because I don't like them, Howard. I really do like this team. I really do like watching them. I just don't think that I think that there might be a year away based on Zion. Because at this point, Zion is now the number one guy. And I think they need to adjust their team around that in a postseason setting. And I think that's going to take more than just one season to do that. And I think that Zion is going to take his lumps with teams just game planning against him. And for those reasons, I don't think that they're ready yet. I think he's just going to get his ass kicked for a series, and it's going to be a learning lesson. And he's going to come back next year. But I don't see them going to the conference finals. I don't see them. I think that there'll be a hard out for a team or two, and that's about it. But when it comes to real and what their expectations are, I don't think that they're going to get to that point at this point. So they're not super synthetic, but it's kind of it's a little counterfeit.